The Committee on Homeland Security Subcommittee on Oversight and Management Efficiency will come to order. The purpose of this hearing is to receive testimony on State and local perspectives regarding the impact of transferring Guantanamo Bay detainees to the Homeland. The Chair now recognizes himself for an opening statement. In January 2009, President Obama signed Executive Order 13492, which ordered the closure of the detention facilities at Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in Cuba. Over 7 years later, in February 2016, the Administration submitted its plan to close the detention facility. Although the plan is devoid of specifics, the Administration has made clear that it intends to identify a location within the United States to detain an unspecified number of Guantanamo prisoners. In a hearing before the House Foreign Affairs Committee last month, a senior Defense Department official touted the plan as representing the collective best judgment of the Administration's top military and civilian leaders, and is the result of close collaboration across numerous Federal agencies. And I just must break from the script and comment on that a little bit. The collective best judgment of the Administration's top military and civilian leaders, and with all due respect, military leaders that serve in the Administration are bound to agree with the Commander-in-Chief, right? The old saying is ours is to do and die, ours is not to question why. So their credibility in this regard, unfortunately, has to be questioned on those bases, if nothing else. And of course, the civilian leaders looking to curry favor with the Administration are in the same position. We want to look at the solid, unbiased facts, not the opinions or the collective best judgment. Moving on. But it's time to set the record straight. The Administration has failed to seek the very necessary input from State and local law enforcement on its plan. The reason is simple. Law enforcement professionals strongly oppose any plan that could endanger the citizens they are sworn to protect. Last month, the Major County Sheriff's Association, which represents sheriff's offices from our nation's largest counties, wrote the President to express their opposition to the plan. I ask that this letter be included in the record, and without objection, it is so ordered. The letter states that detainees deemed too dangerous to release should not be brought to the Homeland, where they will pose a threat to the local communities we serve. Why would the Administration ignore the advice of our State and local law enforcement professionals? Just because their advice doesn't fit the Administration's political narrative doesn't mean their voice shouldn't be heard. The fact is, State and local law enforcement have numerous concerns with the implications of bringing the world's most dangerous terrorists to our homeland. Law enforcement officials have serious questions which the Administration's plan either failed to consider or simply did not answer. For example, what if the base requires evacuation? What if detainees require transportation to medical facilities, and what additional resources are needed for such transfers? And I'll add, what about court facilities? I happened to visit Guantanamo Bay, where the taxpayers paid dearly for a very specific court facility that handled these very dangerous people in a classified setting. Where is that going to happen, and who's going to be paying for that yet again? The Administration has argued that taxpayers could save tens of millions of dollars by transferring these terrorists to the Homeland. And I would say, which taxpayers? Right now, all of us pay for Guantanamo Bay, but if you move them state by state, facility by facility, it will be the taxpayers in those local locations that will bear the entire burden. But did they calculate the cost to states and local communities? Cash-strapped states and localities will face additional costs due to the heightened threat environment brought about by this decision, and taxpayers will foot the bill. This site likely would become a magnet for protest as well, further straining the resources of the locals. We also have legal questions, such as whether these terrorists could be eligible for certain forms of relief from removal, release from immigration detention, or constitutional rights. The Department of Justice believes that existing statutory safeguards are sufficient, and courts historically have ruled that detainees held under the laws of war who are brought to the U.S. are outside the reach of immigration laws. But make no mistake, their lawyers will test every avenue and slow justice even further. Another major concern is that the facility would become a terrorist target itself. Consider the propaganda value for ISIS if it successfully sprang a hardened GTMO terrorist on American soil. Anyone who thinks that this is impossible is suffering from, as the 9/11 Commission puts it, a failure of imagination. With about 30% of released detainees having been confirmed or suspected of rejoining the fight, GTMO detainees clearly remain dangerous and want to kill Americans. The facility also could become an attractive target for lone wolves, and other radical Islamist extremists may be inspired to perform jihad in the homeland. The American people do not want GTMO terrorists detained in their communities, their neighborhoods, or down the street from their children's school. Fortunately, Congress passed legislation that prohibits transferring GTMO detainees to the homeland, and the President signed it. However, it's still moving forward with its legacy. The President, that is, and the administration is still moving forward with his legacy-driven agenda, which includes closing Guantanamo Bay. And it is different. It is very different from the national security agenda that I think he should be focused on. Despite the will of the American people, he's moving forward this agenda. States and localities must prepare for the possibility that this administration will seek to detain these terrorists in our community, despite the will of the American people. Finally, I thank Governor Haley for appearing before the subcommittee today, leaving her great state and coming to Washington, D.C. As I stated earlier, receiving input from states and local communities regarding these transfers is critical. That Governor Haley made the trip to Washington today underscores that importance. Thank you again for being here today, Governor. I look forward to your testimony. The Chair now recognizes the ranking minority member of the full committee, the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr.